Now, the African National Congress has welcomed the State of the Nation address presented by President Cyril Ramaphosa last night. The party's Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula led a press briefing a little earlier. He says the ANC is pleased that programs announced by the President for the coming year are informed by resolutions adopted at the recent National Conference. Mbalula also welcomed the announcement of the establishment of a Minister of Electricity in the presidency, calling it a bold step to effectively manage the energy crisis. Our senior reporter Aviwe Mtila was at the briefing and he joins me now live from Cape Town. Aviwe, a lot was said yesterday during the State of the Nation address. Perhaps just tell us what the ANC has to say about all of this.
Well, Heidi, it welcomes the majority of what was said by the President. Of course, it was dealing with the plans of government and what's going to happen going forward. The ANC-led government, of course, highlighted that creating jobs would be one of the key priorities, tackling the electricity crisis, the cost of living, as well as the impact of load shedding, some of what Fikile Mbalula also touched on there at the briefing. Of course, biggest news that came out last night was the announcement of the national state of disaster, and a lot of people are wary, Heidi, given the history of the African National Congress-led government and the woes around corruption. You just had to look, for example, at the SONA Commission and how many people from the African National Congress, 200 plus, that have been implicated in that report. You just also have to look, for example, at all the PPE corruption, where we know that prices were inflated to sums of 1,000% plus, all at the hands largely of the ANC-led government. So it's one of the questions, the elephant in the rooms, that I got out of the way with Fikile Mbalula, asking him, why would South Africans now trust what's going to happen, as, of course, as the red tape is going to be cut and a lot of funds will be released to tackle the national state of disaster? This is what he had to say.
We have been able to show during the short spell of the reported corruption during COVID-19 to institute Fusion Center. We chased all the crooks and criminals. They are accounting as we speak. We implemented swiftly mechanisms that cushioned further corruption and depletion of state funds, public funds, in relation to corruption during COVID-19. That was dealt with. It is documented. It is there. Even some of the senior government officials were held to account, and they are still accounting now. We are going to use that as we are using it during the floods, and we are going to use that, and government will use that in terms of going forward, in terms of disaster management, effectively to ensure that there is not even a cent of public purse that is lost to criminality and corruption. We need to deal with what is urgent, which is electricity crisis and reverse load shedding.
Now, Aviwe, you're going to tell us that Fikile Mbalula is adamant that energy will move to the Department of Mineral Resources, but the President last night said that ESCOM will remain with the Department of Public Enterprises. I wonder why there's confusion.
Somewhat of a contradiction, isn't it, Heidi? But the SG of the ANC seemed to separate the two, saying that energy is on its own and ESCOM is also on its own. So what the President said stands, that ESCOM will remain with public enterprises, while he still is steadfast that, in fact, energy will move to mineral resources. He says that those are the ANC resolutions taken by the party, that, in fact, energy must then move to mineral resources. But he goes on to say, Heidi, or in all of that conversation that we had, that indeed ESCOM too will move to mineral resources, a resolution taken by the African National Congress. I want you to take a closer listen to what the SG of the ANC says, just around that contradiction and the confusion.
We have said in terms of alignment, it must move to where it belongs, which is energy. It will move to energy. In terms of intervention as a package, the President have announced Ministry of Electricity. Now, energy is broader than just ESCOM as a point of intervention. What the ANC conference resolution says, for alignment and configuration, ESCOM must move where it belongs. ESCOM will move to energy in terms of configuration. As a means of intervention now, we support electricity minister to deal with the package of crisis intervention. You may say we are wrong in relation to that and so on, but we think that it is most effective. Disaster management, minister on top, not deputy minister, and deal with the reversing load shedding, energy crisis, energy security. That's what is going to happen here. So by the time load shedding is dealt with and dealt a blow, we will be probably at the point where the entire ESCOM is reconfigured in a way that the conference have agreed. But we can't wait for that moment. It's going to take longer. At the present moment, we deal with a crisis and we need to move with speed. Intervention, it's an emergency, and that is what is important.
We'll definitely be monitoring that story very closely. Thank you for that update. That was our senior reporter, Aviwe Mtila, coming to us live from Cape Town.